Okay, so we're going to continue with the Shiur on Mareh Yaakov, and as we've done each time, we're going to go to the Parshat that we've read in the past week and try and use the principles that we've learned to see how something that wasn't included in the Sefer might have been interpreted according to what we've learned so far. So last week we read Parshat Naso, and Parshat Naso at the end has three aliyahs that contain the sacrifices that were brought by each of the heads of the tribes in order to inaugurate the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And it turns out that each one of them brought exactly the same thing. And we make a very large deal about repeating each and every one of them in detail. So there is
dream, because it's very easy to learn and very easy to impress.
There is a midrash that says that in fact each one of them brought the same items without discussing before with the others, and in fact each of them had a different significance to the thought that they were bringing them for. So everyone brought the same thing, didn't know the other one was bringing that, and had a completely different reason for bringing those items. And that fits in very well with our concept of Judaism and the 12 tribes. We believe that each one of them had a different approach, and the approach was equally valid and led to the same conclusion.
So it's like the Septuagint, when all the Chachamim go into a separate room and they come out with it.
So we have each of their paragraphs introduced with their name and the fact that they brought it on such and such a day, and then it details the sacrifice that they brought. The first three Nesiim, the first three princes who are mentioned, have a slightly different set of notes that introduce how they brought their sacrifice, and then from there on in, it's almost carbon copy, with the exception of the numbers up until 10 are single words, and the numbers 11 and 12 are two words. But I'm going to go through the first 3 days, and we're going to see the significance to the notes that introduce each of the paragraphs. So when the first Nasi comes, it is something that in and of itself is a brand new celebration. So we're going to introduce the event by saying that this is what's going to happen, and the fact that this happens is something that stands by itself. So the word vayehi, and it was, is that word that's going to stand alone, and it's going to emphasize the point. So that word has the note revi'i, stands alone, says something brand new is going to happen, something grand is going to happen, something grandiose is going to happen. We have to pause and we have to think about it, because something is going to happen.
And is the first one Yehuda, by the way?
Yes.
Who's the fourth son also of Revi'i? That could be also an allusion to. He's the fourth, right?
Something grand is going to happen. The fact that all of these are going to happen, or his? The first?
His.
Okay.
Because his is going to stand alone. He's the first one, he's the volunteer.
Okay.
And in fact, the spirit in which he brings it is something that's going to make him an example and make him something that everyone else can rely on, a source of comfort. So when we say Vayehi HaMakriv, the one who brings the first sacrifice, this source of comfort, this source of something that he did something right, he did something that everybody wants to rely on. So again, that is going to relate to the note that's under it, something that's comforting, something to rest on, something that's supported. It's going to be a tivir. So again, Vayehi HaMakriv, the one who comes the first day. And we continue on the first day, his sacrifice, Nachshon ben Aminadav for the tribe of Judah, and his sacrifice. So everybody else we're going to say his sacrifice. For the first day we're going to say and his sacrifice. We're going to add the word v, and. Why do we do that? Because not only was his sacrifice important, but the fact that he came as an example, the fact that he came as the first one is important. So that's why we add the word and it was both important because he was the first one to come, and it was important because he gave something. So we're going to have a dual meaning to and his sacrifice. So we're going to have a note that's going to, again, emphasize this word, make it stand out, and say that there's a duplicity to it. So there's going to be gershayim. There's the two notes together on the two marks together on the same word. That's going to make it stand out, make it something important, something regal, and have a double meaning to it. Both important to him and important because it's the first one that's happening. Now we're going to go to the second one. The second one says, Bayom Hasheni, on the second day. Each day has a significance in and of itself, but from here on in, it also is part of the whole. It's also part of the fact that everybody is bringing, everybody is contributing. So the day is something that's special, so it's going to have a pashta, it's going to stand out. And Hasheni, the second day, is going to be significant both in and of itself and significant as part of the group. So it's going to have, again, a note that has two parts to it. So it's going to be a katon. It's going to be those two dots on top of the word that's going to say, again, we've got a double meaning. And Netanel ben Tzuar, Nasi Yisachar, Netanel ben Tzuar, the prince of Yisachar. And here we're going to have a change in the notes again. It's not Vikorbano with the Gershayim. It's going to be that astonishment of astonishment. Second guy brings exactly the same thing, brings it immediately on the heels of the other, runs forward and says, I'm going to bring mine too. So when we have that idea of somebody following on the heels without pausing, we usually use kadma v'azla. Kadma v'azla we'll find in circumstances where somebody doesn't wait. They do it at the first available moment. So, hikriv et korbano, kadma v'azla. That's for the second guy. And then we go through his sacrifice, and then we come to the third guy. So again, we're going to say the same thing, bayom hashlishi, and it's going to have exactly the same notes. On the third day, the day is important, and the fact that it's both the third day and part of the entire process, it's going to have that double idea of it being important of itself and also important as part of the group. So it's going to have a katon. And then we're going to get to korbano, not and anymore, but just his sacrifice. His sacrifice is important both in and of itself, and again as part of the group. And it's going to stand out and be something that's joyous. So here we're going to get the Gershayim again. And from here until the end, we keep on repeating that same pattern. That the day is important, each day is part of the entire sequence, so not only is it important of itself, it's important as part of the group. And we see that because at the end, after we've said all 12 sacrifices, we add them all together and we calculate that as well and say what that was worth as well. So not only individual efforts are important, but the group effort is important as well. And each one, again, gets with the word korbano, important in and of itself, and important for its own meaning as part of the group, and its own meaning as part of itself. So how the Midrash jives with the notes that introduce each of the 12 Nesim. Did I answer the question that you thought you had?
No.
No. So we're going to bring another question about the same thing.
Okay, and it's probably very simple, basic, but the order. They're not in the order of the birth order. Probably connected to, but then I want to know why that order. The order of how the tribes are set up around the encampment, but why are they set up in that order? Like, I don't know, is that...
So, the order in which they're set up around the encampment has to do with the blessing that Jacob gave to his sons way back in Bereshit. There are sons who are designated as leaders. Lo Yasur Shevet mi Yehuda. The staff of leadership is not going to go away from Yehuda, so he's one of the leaders.
He's first here.
And again, he's first. I'm trying to remember the psukim now. Balaturim quotes all 4 psukim in last week's Parshat in Bamidbar. So there's a sentence that designates each of the 4 leaders of the groups, and then we have the concept of the idea that the sons of Rachel and Leah really didn't get along very well. Leah has 6 children, but one of those 6 children is Levi. So you'd think two groups of 3, we've got 6, but then we take away 1. So who comes in to fill in the 6th place? The 6th place is Gad. Gad is the oldest born of Leah's maidservant's children.
Right.
So he gets bumped up from being one of the maidservant's children into the group with Leah's children. So we have 2 groups of 3 there. That's 2 of the groups of 3.
Right.
And then we have Yosef and Binyamin, but Yosef turns into 2 tribes. Yosef turns into Menashe and Ephraim. So naturally they go with Binyamin. We have, again, the progeny of the children of Rachel. And then we've got all the rest. The children of the maidservants, they really didn't have arguments in between themselves. So the rest of them, excluding Gad, who was the firstborn, sort of got bumped up to the major leagues. Everybody else is that last group of 3.
Okay. But the order there, Gad is last.
No, it can't.
Gad is Bayom HaShishi. Gad is the 6th day.
Oh, okay.
So,
Dan, Dan is
Dan is
last. You're right. But still, so the exact order.
So
how
the
do
exact
they determine?
the exact order once you get into each of those groupings is not something that I know the answer to offhand, but I know why each of the groupings come. And as I said,
Right.
Balaturim says which person is first in each group, which person is in charge of each group, based on Jacob's blessings
Right.
and sentences that set those 4 apart. But I don't know why we get 2 and 3 in each group.
Okay.
it's probably chronological. We'd have to check it.
I would have to
I
check.
don't know.
I'd have to check, and it doesn't come off the top of my mind.
Okay.
Okay, so
I mean,
let's
I know
pause
there's a
for a
specific
minute.
reason, but-